Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Treadstone. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, let's focus on the John and Petra stuff. Now, that was really interesting. She ran him over last episode, but it's like, oh, she's not turning him into her superiors, even though that's kind of what her orders were. Because, once again, it's kind of like, because last episode I was curious, like, what her whole deal was. It did seem like there was some emotion involved, but I thought that was all kind of part of it, but I guess it kind of was. But then somewhere along the way, I guess, because she kind of makes it seem like eventually, I guess she almost kind of gained a conscience where she made that whole point of like, oh, like everyone, it's like you've been raised to believe certain people are villains and stuff like that. But I guess after everything that she did, I guess more particular what she did to John and what she made John do, killing people he considered friends and allies, all that stuff. I guess maybe it kind of finally wore on her. Maybe she thought for such a long time, like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what's right for my country, for my people. But now it's like, maybe something's kind of gotten skewed along the way. Maybe just like she was telling John that he was kind of force-fed to believe, like, oh, here's the heroes, here's the villains. Maybe her circumstances are exactly the same. Regardless, I just thought that was fascinating. Obviously, John doesn't want to believe her because it's like, the fact of the matter is everything you did to me. But she's like, what we had was real. But it's like, yeah, it was maybe, but it's like it was something created under the crazy circumstances. But it is seeming like she's willing to kill her own people, which obviously there's a part of you that could just look at it as like, well, that could be her just playing the long game. But more so than anything, I think she does legitimately love John, which is like, once again, I brought it up like last time of like how twisted it is that you kind of fell in love with the weapon you made. That's just kind of interesting. And so obviously they're laying low and everything. And for John, it turns into this complicated thing of like, she's still trying to look out for him and everything. It's like, oh, everyone's going to be targeting you. I'm trying to find a place for us to lay low until we can, because basically finding out that like, the main thing that ended up being the case was like he ended up killing a former friend and ally, Wilson, back when he was, when John was still with the CIA, or still technically is, but when he got brought back in, when it's like, oh, he got rescued himself, but, it's like, oh, at headquarters, Wilson gave him so much shit about Matheson in particular, and he trying to tell Wilson, it's like, Matheson's still alive, but like he didn't want to believe him because it's like, you're a traitor, you're this and that. And obviously for John, they get cemented the moment he kills Wilson. It's like, even though it was self-defense and everything, it feels like for him, it's like, I've got nothing left. I mean, to be fair, it's like, well, your boss ended up killing your friend because he was trying to turn you in, and obviously, so I guess the whole thing is, like, the whole point of coming to Budapest was to try and find some stuff that could basically clear his name and all that stuff, and potentially find those agents, find out whatever really happened to him, what happened to, John, what happened to him during those 9 months. But now killing Wilson kind of makes it go like, there's no explaining this. I'm going to be looked at as a traitor. It was even interesting because Petra was like, why did you, stay behind to look after your friend? It was like, she she had taken notice of that before. That's why she picked John, because of his soul and because of just his strong will and everything, which is like, it's interesting. Like I said, you made him into this, but it's like certain aspects of his personality you fell in love with, I guess, because she finds those aspects of him very admirable, as I guess from one soldier to another, she recognizes that in him. And I guess there is a kinship in the fact is that I don't know, it's interesting that they're almost turning Petra and John's story into almost like a star-crossed lovers type of thing, but a very, very different and twisted version of it, when you kind of think of it. But regardless, it is that complicated thing of like, oh yeah, like your friend that you sacrificed yourself for to get away. What if Frank? He ended up getting killed, and it's like, oh, it wasn't even the KGB that did it. It was people on your own side who did it. So it's just kind of like I think that's probably enough to kind of skewer your mind. But obviously for John, he felt like, I have nothing to live for, because like I have no home to go back to, because the CIA is officially going to be they're hunting me now. Like there's no going back for me, so I have nowhere to belong to anymore. And he tried to kill himself, but Petra stopped him by telling him that Matheson is alive. No, she'd already told him that Matheson alive, that the doctor who was conducting all these experiments was actually still alive. And then the fact of the matter is Matheson and the few others that are still alive, because it was like, I think she said there were 3 people kind of going through the cicada program. I think it was what she was saying, but there was one that was like heavily injured. So it's like, I guess the whole thing was to kind of get John to break them and then make them into like loyal soldiers too. I guess that maybe that's kind of, I mean, obviously it was meant to, like, if he could do that to former allies, it shows that he was completely under their control when it came to the cicada program. So that was probably more so a test than anything, but also by breaking them, it made it easier to potentially warp them in the same way they did John. That's kind of how I'm seeing it, but regardless. But the doctor's still alive somehow, some way. So that's why the cicada program has kind of continued on and everything. And obviously Petra's going to try and help him rescue the other soldiers, as well as put the doctor down once for all. And then they proceed to have sex, which is like, once again, that's super complicated. It's just interesting. And obviously I like too that we're obviously cutting back between present day and past. Obviously the shock, Petra learns that Yuri is a billionaire. So it's kind of like, wait, so it's like, yeah, it's one thing of him wanting to steal Stiletto 6, but now you realize, like, wait, rather than being a loyal soldier to Mother Russia and stuff like that, it seems like he's more so about lining his pocket as well as living a very lavish lifestyle. And obviously this hits Petra hard because it's like, well, her and Yuri had a thing back in the day, and it was a representation of kind of the old regime of just like their dedication to Russia. And it's kind of, and he talked about the fact is, like, he gave her this whole speech and she kind of quoted him about it, of like, the fact of the matter is, like, you need a cause and whatnot, like that, let that be your motivation essentially. And it's like, look at how far you've fallen. The fact is, you're even here speaking English, so it's kind of like you really have change. You're living this very lavish lifestyle. It's like, what about Mother Russia? The fact of the matter is, what about my mission? It's like, yeah, you were supposed to look after Stiletto 6. Don't worry about what I'm gonna do with it, but hey, you did a good job. Go back to the farm and all that. It's like, what? You made me this was literally a job you gave me, was looking after that Stiletto 6 missile for like the past 25 years. Because even the tragic and sad situation is she even killed her own husband because it's like no one's supposed to know about it. And her loyalty, it's almost like it legitimately makes it kind of like everything I've done was for nothing. Because to be fair, that whole, and I figured as much, but I guess she didn't recognize it at the time. She thought like, oh, this is a true test. Or maybe she knew she was being punished, but she thought she could prove herself. But all those years spent looking after that missile, and it just came down to nothing, because it's like they left you there because it's like, probably the moment they came to get the missile, they were probably going to kill you anyway. Probably just because like, oh, you're part of the old regime. So, or maybe they would have forgotten about you anyway. So it's kind of like, oh, she's still looking after the missile, huh? Whatever. So it's like after that, she would have been kind of cut out of everything. I mean, to be fair, this whole cell isn't for Russia, it's for Yuri himself. But once again, to line his own pocket. So it's kind of sad to, have him kind of tear her down, because it's like, oh, you would want me to kill you, wouldn't you? Because that way you feel like you died nobly and for Mother Russia and everything. But it's like, nah, you just go back to your farm and enjoy whatever's left of this old life, your old age and everything. And it's like, in that moment, she just, I don't know. It's there's a part of you that feels a little heartbroken by it, but at the same time, it's like, well, the shit it's just so interesting to think about how she got to where she was in 73 to where she is present day, or at least how, like, what exactly went down. Once again, it's just the whole thing of John, like, what's going to happen. I think John is still out there. I don't know. We might find out that maybe at the end of it all, he ends up killing himself, or maybe he ends up twistedly enough dying in Petra's arm. But part of me thinks, I don't know, the fact is that Petra goes back to the army, I guess it's because she makes it seem like, in 73, like, oh, I can't go back either. And it's like, you ultimately do. So it's like, what led to you going back? John must not have, like, it's like, oh, maybe in this moment right now, she's thinking like, oh, John loves me. But then he's kind of like, oh, you thought I'd forget everything you put me through? And he must leave and abandon her. So she kind of has nothing or no one left. So she kind of has no choice but to return to Russia. I mean, no one really knows that she's a traitor, at least no one alive. Everyone that would know that she's a traitor is dead right now. So the thing is, they know that she screwed up because, like, oh, her emotions got the best of her. So it's like, they know that amount of things, but I guess they don't know that she outright killed they probably just think John's the one that did it, because it doesn't seem like I mean, to be fair, like I said, Yuri said she got punished for kind of screwing up multiple times, but it doesn't seem like she got labeled a traitor. So they probably never found out about the whole Petra working with John thing, regardless. So there's that. Now, interestingly enough, that also circles into So-yeon's storyline, where obviously she's hiding in one of the vehicles that's, associated with Colonel Shin, which I thought was interesting. They're in South Korea now. I didn't, I'm ignorant to, Korea in general. Well, both Koreas. I don't know, I feel like going from north to south shouldn't be, I guess if you're a high-ranking official, you can do that. But I'm like, I feel like there would be some red tape you'd have to go through. But maybe that's because there is because of the grand conspiracy and just how big this is. Maybe there are South Korean associates with that whole situation. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, maybe they were at a part in I guess maybe when they meet up. Well, no, because she was back home, so she was in North Korea. So that was outside of her place and everything. So it's like, huh. I mean, once again, like I said, I'm ignorant, so it might not be that big of an issue. I thought there was kind of issues from going from North Korea to South Korea, especially for someone who's so high ranking. I figured that would be a thing, but I guess there's a whole almost like a diplomatic immunity of someone who's a diplomat gets to go in without too much fuss. Maybe, or like I said, maybe there's connections on that regard. Once again, and this is coming from someone who's ignorant on the subject. I just thought that was interesting when they pointed out it was in South Korea. But she's stealing some money and stuff along the way because she's trying to keep an eye on Colonel Shin, which we now know he's in South Korea because this is they're trying to set up the deal. She actually looks super cute. Obviously, she looked cute before, but she looks super cute when she's got changed her hair, and obviously she's trying to get into the club and everything. I was like, oh, that was super cute. And he's like, oh yeah, there's no but boring rich people there. And she's telling the bouncer dude or whatever, be like, oh, then if you can always come and rescue me or something like that. It's like, oh wow, she's playing that role up and good. I didn't even I forgot about the fact. Also talk about the fact is that she kind of did what Doug did last episode, making a makeshift listening device and stuff like that. I'm like, that's incredible. Once again, just showing you what they're capable of under, the training that they've gone through, the programming that they've gone through. But I thought it was kind of interesting because we do see that Yuri is there. So it's like, okay, the actual deal is going down now, which that in itself ties into Tara's side of things, which obviously there's a whole complicated thing of obviously her and Sebastian are trying to, Sebastian's kind of pushing to kind of pick up where they left off. Obviously, for Tara, she considers herself lucky to have friends like them, and he's like, oh, so we're just friends. But it's a complicated thing that I just think Tara, she obviously still has feelings for Sebastian, but she was kind of reluctant to kind of go down that path again. But it's like that reluctancy kind of disappears. We did kind of get a little more insight into the tragedy that kind of made her lose her family. She doesn't remember the entire accident, I guess because just kind of the trauma of it blocked out the actual accident. But for her, it's like that's actually worse because all I can do is my brain automatically fills in the blanks and it just makes the car crash. Who knows if it's actually worse than what I'm imagining or actually a little better. I mean, granted, there's no better in the circumstances of losing your family, but it's just that's just kind of a rough thing, And so, obviously, they're trying to figure out, they're trying to set up the whole meeting with Yuri, which that doesn't go down. And then all of a sudden they get attacked and everything. And, and they're getting taken by these people. And Tara's telling her friend Megan, I know we're going to make it through this. I was just squirming the entire... I was almost halfway expecting a bullet to come out of nowhere in the sense that, they're going to be behind and shoot Megan. I kept wondering. And then they walk in front and it's like, okay, give us basically the codes to the money. And she's like, no. And they shoot and kill Megan immediately. I'm like, Jesus. And then, the whole Sebastian thing, the fact is they hesitated to wait. I mean, it's like, well, you have a hostage. You're going to force her hand by keeping... It's like, oh, we're giving you time to really contemplate this. But it's like, damn, dude. And for Tara, it's just she literally did... That's why she stays away from people. Because, she feels like she gets all the people around her killed. And now, she brought Megan into this. Which even Megan was like, this isn't on you. I made the choice to be her. So obviously she's even pushing... Now, because of Megan's death, it's like... she's even pushing Sebastian away. Because the interesting thing was why is she so dedicated to finding Stiletto 6? And I liked her answer. It was like, this isn't just like some story of like, oh, like my reputation, like, oh, it's kind of like, oh, I want to tell the truth, because obviously as a journalist, that's and reporter, that's what was important to her. But also for the fact that she blames herself, because if something happens with Stiletto 6, if it gets activated or used, millions of people are going to die, and she's going to blame herself because it was my failure of not, because I got pushed into this situation of no one believing me. Like if Stiletto 6 gets you, it's going to be my fault for not spreading the truth because I didn't do enough on my part, which is like, that's beyond her control. Like that everything was kind of skewed against her, but she's like, I can't help to feel how I feel. So for her, this just keeps getting more and more personal. It's like all of that, but now it's like Megan literally died for it, and she's pushing Sebastian away because it's like, I gotta handle this on my own. She calls that dude Nolan, which Nolan's from Russia, because she's actually heading to Moscow now, which I'm guessing Yuri's going to be eventually. Well, no, because Yuri's not. Well, because Petro found him in Greece, so who knows if he's necessarily going to go back to Moscow. Which I'm wondering, is Petra going to Russia? So will we have connections in that regard? Like there's a connective tissue all there, but they're not actually like completely connecting, except in certain regards. Like for example, Yuri going there to meet up with, I guess, with Colonel Shin to kind of set up the dealings and stuff. Like, well, no, yeah, so it's like I don't know, like everything's connected, but they're like staying separate. We haven't seen everything fully envelop. It probably won't be till like near the end of this season where everything fully connects, and we're just probably seeing like probably all our main characters all in the same place type of situation, kind of similar like the Sense8, because obviously that's what I've kind of made comparison to for many different regards. But I think it might be kind of a situation kind of similar to that. But regardless, I'm just interested to see where that goes, her adventures in Moscow, because that dude Nolan knows something about the Treadstone, but he was like, oh yeah, I didn't hear that last word. Well, hit me up next time you're kind of in this area, and Tara immediately gets tickets for Moscow. So there's that. Then there's Doug's side of things, where Doug is racing to get back to Samantha, but Sam's like already dyed her hair and everything. He's like, whoa, what's going on here? It's like, yeah, the fact is we kind of got to disappear and everything, which I'm like, huh. Which is interesting because once again, it's been a while since I've seen the Jason Bourne movies. That was actually, well, because the lady he's with in the first movie, who, spoiler alert, dies in the second movie, like at the beginning. I think even Julia Stiles' character like changes her look later on in the movies. I think she gets introduced in 2, and she becomes like his like ally in 2, and becomes a mainstay in 3, if I remember correctly. Once again, it's been a while. I need to remedy that situation, but much like the I butchered that. Much like the Lethal Weapon situation, even when I was watching the TV show, I still have yet to actually go back and watch the Lethal Weapon movies. But regardless, once again, I'm going on a huge tangent or whatever. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. And even Doug's like, okay, you've got all these supplies and passports and stuff. Like, how'd you know about this? She's like, I was there while like this whole program was happening, so I picked up a thing or two. So they got a new vehicle. There's all about this dude named Marcus, which Doug is like, we got to go help him, because obviously this stuff isn't making any sense, because it's like, okay, pharmaceutical company and all these people and stuff like that. Because even Sam's like, this doesn't make any sense. Or was it Doug? I think it was Doug that was saying like it didn't make any sense why they're targeting these people. It's like the CIA and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't seem like this is their rodeo. Or it might have been, like I said, I'm confusing. It might have been Sam who said it, but it was just kind of like, yeah, like something's not right with this situation. These aren't the typical targets the CIA would go after, so obviously there's a bigger part to play in all this. I didn't even talk about it, but like Senator Ray actually meets up with Yuri, so obviously kind of showing that connection's definitely there. Which it seems like maybe he's the one, because I forgot, him and Yuri had a conversation, but I can't remember what it was exactly. But it's like, obviously he must have some facilitation aspects to this whole making this dealing happen, because obviously he's doing things on his part, because I'm sure everything that's going down in the U.S., I mean, probably not just the U.S., once again, bro, like probably everything that's happening connected to this Stiletto 6 situation, it's probably because of him, but also like just the full pharmaceutical angle of things, you know, that's kind of on Doug's side of things to a certain extent, like all that happening, plus once again that heir to that pharmaceutical company getting killed in India. Like, the pieces are there. You're just trying to find the right place for everything. But regardless, I guess for Doug more so than anything, it's like, hey, we got to help this Marcus dude. It's like, we got to do some good. Like, obviously, we've killed a lot of people and just a lot of terrible shit. So it's kind of like, we got to balance it out. Like, we know this guy's a target, so we need to go check on him. So they go. Sam is waiting in the car. You have Doug going up to the house, and obviously when the door closes, boom, which Sam goes rushing in, and once again, very, for lack of a better word, explosive way to kind of leave a bit of a cliffhanger. So I'm curious to see, where things kind of take us going forward with all this into the next episode, especially like why this dude in particular, Marcus, was being targeted and stuff like that, because there's like no connections necessarily. So it's like, we'll see what the whole plan is with all of this. Obviously what Tara is going to be up to next episode, what she's going to discover in this whole dealing. I mean, another aspect to it is like, we also don't know who exactly those people were that killed Megan. You'd assume they'd have to work for either, because they were getting like the codes or whatever and stuff. So I think it was more specifically to the money and stuff like that. So it has to be the Russians getting the money they need to buy Stiletto 6. No, it's the North Koreans, because they're the ones that need the money to buy it from Yuri. I forgot. So it's like, so are they working for someone else? Or is this like Yuri trying to pull a fastball or something? Or maybe some other party is trying to buy Stiletto 6 and not just the North Korea. Maybe someone else is trying. Maybe like Senator Ray. Maybe he's kind of like got some stuff happening on the side to kind of make that happen. I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions. Like I said, we'll just ultimately have to wait and see where everything ends up taking us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.